it's not just me that lost everything. It's my friends. It's our community. It's the routines. It's, those smiling faces at every restaurant we would go to. The ladies at the coffee shop that knew my order every time I would go. It's those familiar faces that you see everywhere. And I think that, you know, I'm trying to come to grips with that not being our reality anymore.
Welcome to Recover Her, the podcast where your healing journey begins. I'm Heather Novak, and I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Tracy Oppenheim, a compassionate psychiatrist. Today, we embark on a path of recovery and self-discovery. We are dedicated to inspiring each and every one of you to overcome your struggles and live your best, most fulfilling life. Your recovery starts now, and we're here with you every step of the way.
It's only up from here, 'cause there's no one else that's me. I'm unbreakable.
We're here today with one of my favorite people, a dear sister and friend of mine, Sarah Silver. She is going to talk to us today about her experience in her life, sharing her experience, her strength, and her hope and where we're going to go from here. But Sarah was affected by the Palisades fires recently in LA. And I'm just really grateful that you're taking the opportunity to sit down and talk to Tracy and I today.
And I got to witness Heather's reaction when she found out what had happened to you and your family. And so, she was so upset and
Heartbroken. Heartbroken.
So I'm so sorry about what you're going through.
Yeah, it's one thing to hear about it, to watch it on the news, right? To be so removed from it. But then when you love people who are really affected in the center of all of that, it's the night that you and I had that conversation and you walked me through the horrific experience that you and your daughter went through. It just shook me to a core. So how are you doing today?
Today, it's interesting. It's like every day, it's like a different emotion, maybe every hour, maybe every minute. I'm doing okay today. I'm a little emotional today. I'm not exactly sure why. I'm emotional every day, but today is like a different kind of emotion where I really feel I feel lost. Like, where do we go from here?
Right. And you and I met, gosh, we were trying to figure that out before we started recording, right? I love your beautiful smile. Thanks again, Sarah, for being here. It really means the world to me. But you and I met through mutual friends when you were living in Arizona.
Yep.
And I just remember being so gravitated towards you. You were like a magnet. You were somebody who I just instantly wanted to be friends with. And I think that that's exactly what happened with us, right?
Yeah. The feeling was very mutual. You were definitely that kind of gal.
Yeah. Well, I missed you when you moved to California, but walk me through a little bit of life and what you built out there.
Sure. So I have actually been out in California for 21 years. I've run the gamut of occupations since I've been here. What brought me out here was I was hired as a interactive project manager for a company called Zentropy Partners, which soon after I got hired became McCann Erickson. And I was with them for about 2 years. And then it was interesting. My boss said to me, I'm noticing you're doodling during the day and you're looking up all this fashion stuff online. And he's like, is this really what you want to do? And I was like, well, it depends on if my job's in jeopardy. And he's like, no, I just want you to be honest. And I said, no, my dream is always to become a wardrobe stylist. And so he actually said, why don't we help you build your website? So they internally helped me build this website. And, you know, I think that they knew that they were going to be doing layoffs within the first the next 6 months. So, you know, because I built these friendships with these people, they were like, let's help you catapult into what you want to do next.
Sure.
Even to the point where during my lunch break, I would go across the street to the E-Entertainment building in the Style Network area, and I would go and talk to them about, you know, what I wanted to do. And so about 6 months later, I did get laid off, but I already had my website built, and I started working for the Style Network. I did some on-air hosting with them and trend forecasting. You know, I was in Arizona for about 9 years, and I wanted to make a change just personally and, you know, career wise and everything. And I felt like it was just becoming a little stagnant there. So I was like, I need to make some sort of a change. And my dream was to come here.
And you did it.
And I did it. So I was in the fashion industry for about 4 or 5 years. And then we got the unfortunate call that my dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And so I moved back to Minneapolis in, was it 2007? I moved back to Minneapolis to just be there with my family and, you know, be of support to my dad and, you know, my siblings and my stepmom. And I had a 19-month journey there. And after he passed, I moved back to LA and have been here ever since. And about, I think it was 2015, I invested in my first property, which was actually in Minneapolis, because it was a lot more attainable to buy real estate there than here, at least when you're getting into the industry. And, you know, I bought this little property and I heard about this little company called Airbnb, which was a total anomaly at that time, especially in the Twin Cities. People were like, Airbnb, what's that? And I created my first listing and it was just booked solid.
A hit.
And so I started investing in more properties there. I built out a guest house that we had in the back of our house, converted that to an Airbnb. And, you know, I built my first building in Minneapolis. I actually built an 8-unit co-living building, like a work-live type situation for 30-day or more, you know, travelers. Because there's headquarters all over the place in the Twin Cities and a lot of a lack of housing. For, you know, longer term renters.
Smart.
Yeah. And I purchased a property in Malibu in 2017 and had a vision to separate the property. Part of the property had this old rundown guest house that the old owners were doing nothing with. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to convert this to a guest house. I'm going to partition off so it's a separate entrance. So my daughter and I can live in the main house, and I'm going to rent this out so it offsets my mortgage. And that's what I did. And I was booked solid. And then COVID happened. And I was like, you know, I need to figure out how I'm going to support myself because, as we all know, I mean, everything got canceled. I had no bookings anywhere. And I was like, how am I going to pay this huge mortgage? So I actually listed my main house and put it on Airbnb. And my daughter and I moved to Palm Springs for 4 months because we have some family friends that have a home down there, and she was Zoom schooling. And I rented the house out. And it's just became an Airbnb because I was making such good money.
This is the property in Malibu now, but you still had the income coming in from Minneapolis properties.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Because we were talking about it before you came on as a guest, and Tracy was asking, how did she get into this? How did she build the business that she had? And so I'm thanks for starting at the very beginning about.
I want to highlight from your story so far. I'm also hearing during COVID, right? You had to be creative to take care of yourself and to take care of your daughter, and found a solution, right? So it sounds like there was a period of time where you were in overwhelm and stressed out and wondering what was going to come next, and you were able to find that solution. Was that hard to leave California? Not to leave California, but to leave Malibu for Palm Springs?
It wasn't, because it was like we were all in it together.
Yeah.
So we couldn't see anyone anyways. And I have such an attachment to the desert. I think I got that from Arizona.
I know. It's so healing.
It is. And there is this solace that I feel whenever I drive into Palm Springs and see those windmills going. I'm like, all right, I'm home.
Yeah.
It's just
drops in, your nervous system can calm, you can take a deep breath. You don't know what's going to happen. I mean, the world was in a state of a complete unknown with COVID. So you rented out the main house in Malibu as well as the guest house. So you had that, and you guys went on to Palm Springs and stayed there for how long, Sarah?
We were there for about 4 months.
Okay.
And then we came back to LA, but my best friend who had a house a few blocks away from our house, she was stuck overseas because her husband is from Egypt. And so their house was vacant. And so she let us move into her home.
Okay.
And we were there for a few months, and then COVID started, they started easing
Ease up.
Exactly. And so I found a friend of mine that was in the real estate business, said, hey, there's a really cute little bungalow. It was cheap, right in the Palisades. He's like, why don't you go grab it? So I rented it. We were there for 2 years, and, things started kind of lightening up a little bit. But I continued to rent my Malibu house out because the income stream was
phenomenal,
so consistent, and it was phenomenal, and it was covering all of my expenses and then some.
Good.
And then about a year and a half, well, it was about 2 years ago, I started, seeing like, wow, my numbers are good, but my lifestyle and my cost of living is going up. And what am I going to do to generate more income? And so I was like, I have all this expertise in the short-term rental market and managing properties. Why don't I start managing other people's properties? And so I started this company, Seamless Destinations, and that's kind of where I'm at now.
I did have an opportunity to go on your website before, and it's really visually appealing. And I had this quick thought of like, well, I will let her manage my property, and then I remembered I don't have one to manage. So but it's that good.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. Well, I don't have one to manage either, so we're in the same boat.
But I
do
love
my clients.
What I love so much, Sarah, along with your enthusiasm and your resilience and just who you are, is that you constantly, talk about a woman that knows how to pivot and find an opportunity that exists, and that it's just like she's really good at figuring out the puzzle piece that just fits. And, so here you are.
Walk us through what happened, what your experience was with the fires.
So I believe it was a Tuesday. It was the 7th. I'll never forget that it was January 7th. I think it was Tuesday. Yes, because I go to Hot Power Fusion at Hot 8 on Tuesdays. And I was driving home. I remember, actually, let me rewind. I called my ex-husband that morning and said, hey, I'm going to be in class for an hour. You may be getting a call from the school because the winds were just ripping. And Malibu schools were already closed. But the Palisades school hadn't been closed yet. None of the schools. We hadn't gotten notification. But I did say, please keep your phone on you because you may need to go get Tirza. So after my class was out, I was driving on the PCH and I got these text messages from, I'm in a group chat with the moms at Marquez, and they were saying that they were doing voluntary evacuations. And I didn't really think anything of it. Got in the shower, got ready for the day. But then I looked out the window and I'm like, oh, there's a fire and it's real close to my house. And so I texted my friends and, said, okay, I'm going to get my daughter, and raced to the school. I lived 3 minutes away from the school. They hadn't set any evacuation warnings yet, which I found crazy because the fires were literally right behind our children's school.
Okay, so you leave yoga, you head home, take a shower, checking your phone from your girlfriends, and they're saying there's some evacuations taking
They're
place.
voluntarily letting these kids leave school.
Okay.
And I get to the school and it was like just a madhouse in the office because you have to sign these slips to get your kids. And half the moms were like, screw the slips.
Right.
We're going through getting our kids, just in total panic.
Right.
And, I have a friend that her home was right where these fires were. And I was texting her, do you need me to get your boy? And, I'm sure everyone else was texting everyone too, because all of us work. And, across town. And so I got Tirza and we raced home. And as we were going up the street, we had a neighbor say, do not go up there. It's already hot up there. And I said, too bad. I have 3 animals. I am getting my pets. And we went up our hill and the fires were literally right there. And I was just so frazzled. I threw whatever I could in a suitcase, and Tirza threw in hers. We threw our pets in the car and we left.
In that moment, as you're throwing things in a bag, did you have an idea that you would be coming back? What were you anticipating?
So that's a good question, because that was in my head this whole time. I was like, oh, this is fine. We've been through this fire situation a handful of times. So I'm like, it's fine. I'll be back tonight or tomorrow. It's not a big deal. And so as I was packing everything, I had that in the back of my mind. I didn't turn anything off. I didn't close up. I mean, I locked the doors, but that was pretty much it. And we got in the car and we went down the hill. And as we went down, there's a street called Bienvenida. It takes you to Sunset. And my intent was to go left to get out of town. And the police were blocking that for you to go left. I assume because of, the, fire engines coming in from the city. That was their only entrance to get in. So they were directing us south on Sunset towards the PCH. And I'm sitting here looking, I'm like, they're directing us into the fires. We're literally going into the fires. And the panic, once I got down a few blocks, it was just complete gridlock. You see these people coming up Sunset with pet carriers. I saw a friend of mine who had 2 children at the school walking up the street, with dust and soot coming all over, and these elderly people and children with masks. And you're just like, what is going on? You think that you can trust these officials to direct you into safety. And at that juncture, I was like, I don't trust anyone but my own instincts. And so I was texting with my family in Minnesota, and, I don't think that, well, obviously they didn't realize the severity of it either. They were
Right.
like, you have to stay calm for Tirza. I was like, no, there's no staying calm for Tirza because our life is literally in jeopardy right now. People were getting out of their cars and abandoning them.
Do you remember what Tirza was saying to you at that point?
She was just like, I'm scared, Mama. I'm scared.
Mm-hmm.
And I was scared right along with her.
So when you and I've tried to repeat your story to several other people, and I don't do it justice, but I remember when you told me in that moment that not only were you driving an electric car, but you could see fire. You could see the flames on both sides of the road. You thought your whole life was in that car was gonna go up in flames, blow up.
I thought my car was going to blow up. So what I did was I got out of my car because there's 2 lanes going down Sunset. I was on the farthest lane where, the mountainside was. I got out of my car and went to this woman next to me. I said, please move your car up. Because my plan was I was going to make a U-turn and at least go away from the fires. So she moved the car up and I made a U-turn and went north on Sunset instead of south. And we were in traffic for about an hour and a half, still gridlock going that way as well. And we took a side street that got us through the gates of the Bel Air Bay Club, which had access to getting onto the PCH. But that was like an hour and a half and it's a block away. But in my whole panic and like survival mindset, I'm like, okay, I just need to not be going into the fires. I need to go away from them and I'll feel a little bit better. But I was still panicked because none of us could go anywhere. So we finally were able to get onto a side street to take us to the Bel Air Bay Club. They had the gates open. And then eventually we were able to get out and get onto the PCH. I mean, it was about a 2.5 hour fiasco from leaving our house, getting out of town. A lot of people were forced to leave their cars. I mean, we have friends that had their cars bulldozed. If we would have stayed on Sunset, we would have been one of those people. And they were running down to the beach with their kids and animals and just leaving their cars, and because they would have caught on fire.
You have good instincts.
Yeah. Years of experience.
Oh,
I'm also hearing that in your story.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's an anxiety laugh that my therapist likes to remind me. She goes, there's that anxiety laugh.
I also have heard, as we've been talking, just your brain trying to make sense out of what was and what is. So even coming up with the tenses, or I have friends who have, and then you correct yourself to had. Yeah. Is that part of your day-to-day experience? Reconciling what was, what is?
It is. And it's interesting that you bring that up because I think that's where, and I'm going to get emotional. It's not just me that lost everything. It's my friends. It's our community. It's the routines. It's, those smiling faces at every restaurant we would go to, these people that would drive 2 hours to, cook us food at these restaurants. It's, the ladies at the coffee shop that knew my order every time I would go. It's those familiar faces that you see everywhere. And I think that, I'm trying to come to grips with that not being our reality anymore. Heather, you've known me for a long time and you've known a lot of my traumas and things that I've gone through in my life. And, I've had a lot of loss. I mean, I've lost my dad, I've lost my mom, relationships, just everything. And it's like, it almost is like, I think of all of the loss that I have had and it's like you multiply that by 1,000
Yeah.
with what I'm feeling now.
Right.
And it doesn't discount how I felt about losing my father, who was everything to me. But
It's your
it's
whole
just,
life, though,
it's my
Sarah.
whole
It's your
life
whole
was
life.
taken away from me.
Were
And
you,
everything I've built by myself
yeah.
with
Yeah.
no one's help taken away from me. Something that I've been so proud of saying, "Hey, I did this."
You know what, though? That part of you can never be taken away.
Yeah.
Everything that you did build. Will you tell me what it was like? Because I followed your story on Instagram. What was it like when you went back to your house?
Ugh, that was very sad. I was lucky that my best friend's husband actually, because she left because she had a baby after they were evacuated. She left town and went back east to be with her family. But her husband flew back because we actually happened to have the same field adjuster. We also 2 blocks away. So it was really helpful having him there, and another friend came with. But seeing my home and all of its belongings and all of the money and time and effort and, you know, it was just the blood, sweat, and tears and investment that I had put into that house. It was just so sad and so emotional. But it was also scary because it's like, there was still smoke in the back of, the property, and all these other properties to the right of me were gone. And I was just like, how can something completely wipe out an entire area? Something that fierce and strong destroy so much? It was interesting though. The one thing that everyone's like, "Did you find anything salvageable?" I'm like,
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
I'm not going to dig through I'm not going to dig through to find anything salvageable because I don't want it anyways. But the one thing that was sitting there, I had this planter box inside the house that I just hated. I wanted to bulldoze that thing since the beginning, but I never got around to it. It was this like weird box, and I was like, this is taking up so much space, but I ended up utilizing it. And I put plants and bamboo in there and had this big Buddha, and I loved him. And every time I walked into that house, I just would look at him. I was like, oh, he's so cute. And, I consider myself a spiritual person. I don't, I think I dabble in every, I grew up celebrating everything, if you
Right.
will. But this Buddha was sitting there in the middle of all this rubble, sitting
Buddha
there
survived.
looking at me. I was like, okay, there's got to be a lesson in this.
I was just going to ask you what do you think the meaning of that is? What is it for you?
Grounding and peace are the 2 words that come to my mind and came to my mind when I first saw that, just sitting there in all of this destruction. And it made me smile.
Yeah, you posted that, and I'm grateful that you did, because it did leave me with some hope too. It made me less worried for you. And it gave me, like you just said, some hope and peace.
Sarah, how have you balanced, trying to take care of yourself, your nervous system, just navigating all the realities of everything you have to do with the emotional needs of Terza, and kind of helping her navigate what's been coming up for her?
The one thing that we've all talked about is how to parent during all of this. And you have to find that strength within, and you have to stay strong for these kids. For me, I don't know where I'm getting this strength from, but I'm just pulling it from every entity I possibly can. Some days are better than others. Um, I'm just trying so hard to stay balanced with her, and I'm so unbalanced. So I don't know how I'm doing it, but I'm doing it. I think as a parent, you just do it because you don't have a choice.
Her school was lost in the fires.
Yeah.
How then what happens next? Where is she in school currently, or even is she back?
Yeah. So they did a great job of finding schools for these
Okay.
kids because all the schools burned down in the Palisades. So you can imagine how many kids needed to be placed in different areas.
Right.
So she's in a school in West LA right now. A lot of families left to Orange County or, back east or, Manhattan Beach. A lot of people have moved there. But, the core group of kids stayed in the area, at least in her
Mm-hmm.
class. So they're all placed in another school right now for the remainder of the school year. It's been a transition
Yeah.
And
because we're sharing a school with another school.
are the schools sup- providing like support like for the kids? Like what are they doing? What resources are there?
So they have resources at these schools. I'm not exactly certain if it's something I think you can sign up for it, but I do think the first couple weeks they had some people in the classrooms. I'm not exactly sure, to be honest with you. I think the majority of it is, just at home support.
I was curious, like the responsiveness to you, the people that came to support you and Teresa, were there, surprises there? Were you surprised who showed up, who didn't show up?
Yeah, it's interesting how everyone deals with trauma and, catastrophes so much differently. And that has been very eye-opening to see who's been there and who has not been there. Um, I have had people come out of the woodworks that I have not seen in 30 years, reach out to me. I have had almost every single past guest at my property reach out to me and ask me how I'm doing. Like, you gave us such a beautiful home. I mean, I've had so many repeat guests that just direct book with me because they've become friends. They've become family. I know their kids. I had a family that's from Minnesota, and we found out we were both from Minnesota when she was staying there. She was out and stayed at Cloudcroft uh, to go to the fertility clinic out here, and she essentially did her transfer, and she was staying in my home during that process to have her second baby. And so these relationships you form with these people, they're very strong bonds. And she always would tell me, and I'm going to make sure she watches this. She's always like, just please let me know if you ever want to sell Cloudcroft. And she's like, I love that house so much. And, she was devastated because these people have attachments to these properties that they have stayed at repeatedly. Not just mine, my friend's home up the street. We had past guests reaching out to us too, because I managed her house as well. Um, I managed my neighbor's house across the street, and we have had guests. So that has been very eye-opening and humbling and sweet and amazing and all of it. But then you do also have people that thought would show up more, and they don't. And that's okay because we all have our own way of handling things.
What's one thing that you wish people knew about the experiences that you collectively are all going through currently? What do you need the most of, and what do you wish people knew?
What I want people to know, well, let me rewind. The one thing that I've noticed over the last couple weeks is, if you're not in it like we all are here, people are starting to kind of forget and move on with their lives. And, it's like, oh, they'll be fine. They live in the Palisades, they'll rebuild. It's like this is just the beginning for us.
Absolutely.
And, I put this in my post, right after this happened, is there is a big misconception to the Palisades. And yes, there is extreme wealth there, but there are also people that are building wealth and building their lives and raising kids and have dual income households and barely making ends meet and doing everything we possibly can to provide a good life for our children in a safe community like the Palisades. So I just want people to know that, have some compassion and understand that PTSD and trauma is a really big thing. And we're all feeling it. And it's going to be a long road to recovery for all of us.
What do you want to see happen next as far as the recovery effort goes?
I think that the Palisades is never going to be the same because there were a lot of structures that have been around for decades and decades and decades. And, what was is not going to be. I do also feel that we are such a strong community and we're so close knit. And a lot of us are transients from different areas. So we really are family. And I do think that we will build back stronger. I do hope the city, practices what they preach in expediting this process. And so far, it seems like that's the path that we're on. But I hope that continues because I think we're all very scared and about how long of a road this is going to be. So
One foot in front of the other,
yeah,
one step at a time, right?
yeah,
What I love, one of the many things that I do respect and admire so much about you, Sarah, is throughout all of your life experiences, I just never hear you blaming. I've
yeah,
always heard you take personal responsibility for the things that you've needed to. You're not a blamer, and I admire and respect that so much. But I need to understand, and being removed from this situation, please just correct me if I'm wrong, but how did this happen? And where was the water? And where were the firefighters? Where were the resources?
we didn't have resources.
And do you have any answers?
I have many, philosophies about what happened. And I also think that, we need to make a few shifts in who's running our city and our state, especially after this. I think that there was a lack of funding for the fire department. I think there was extreme negligence in terms of not having that reservoir filled.
I know.
Not to mention,
That's
we're on the
insanity.
coast of the Pacific Ocean.
Right.
Like,
No.
it doesn't take a rocket
Yeah,
scientist
this
to
isn't
figure this out.
speculation. That's fact. Right.
It's fact. It's not like, oh, well, maybe no. We're right next door to the Pacific Ocean.
Right.
So what happened? There was also no direction in how to get us out of there.
Right. I know. You said they were like leading you into the flames versus away from it.
Sarah, what's been louder, the for you, the anger
Yeah.
or the grief?
There's many stages of grief, and I've been through them many times in my life. I am definitely in the anger stage, but I'm also in the grief stage. It's kind of I think it's all correlated.
Mm-hmm.
I'm crying one minute, the next minute I'm really mad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I toggle back and forth.
Your anger is so justifiable, Sarah. It's so justifiable. And you and I were talking previously, and anger can be such a catalyst for
Movement.
movement, for for growth and for action. And of course you have permission to feel all of those feelings. It's just insane.
Does it has this experience changed the way you relate to people, changed the way you think about a home or a community?
It has, because you're forced to reflect on your relationships, even down to what you purchase, because it's just stuff. It's just stuff. But I think relationships is a really big thing, because that's all we have in life. And you want to surround yourself with people that are going to build you up and carry you, not just in the good times, when you need them the most. Even when you try and close those doors and say, I don't want to talk to you, or I don't have time, you keep showing up. That's what you need to do. Whether it's friendships, romantic relationships, family, whatever it is. I'm a firm believer in, you don't take no for an answer. When you're going through this kind of stuff, you just keep showing up. You show up.
That's the answer to Tracy's previous question about how do you continue to parent your daughter and show up, because that is exactly what you just said. You just keep showing up for one
You
another.
have to. You've got these little beings that you brought into this world, and they rely on you. And I have to.
Has she been able to process and feel the same full range of human emotion that you've been able to walk through? Has she been able to be angry? Has she been able to cry about this and feel the grief?
So it's interesting, because that's another thing I was talking to my friend about yesterday when we were walking. It's like these kids compartmentalize their emotions, because I don't think they feel the level of pain and grief that we do, because I think at the end of the day, they know they're going to be okay. For us as parents, we're like, holy crap, how are we going to pay our bills? My mortgage is due in 2 months. I have a forbearance right now, but it's 90 days. How am I going to build my business back? I have to replace all of these things. I have loans. I have this, I have that. And so for kids, they have a linear way of thinking. They're like, I need to eat at this time, and I have school, and I have homework. For us, we're thinking of everything. So to your point, I don't know. I feel like she's processing on her own. But I also don't see the range of emotions that I have. She certainly had it when we were stuck on Sunset. That was the one time she did say to me a couple weeks ago, she's like, you know what, Mama, I haven't cried at all, other than when we were stuck in the car. Because that was the scariest of all of it. I did see my house burn down on video, but
How did that happen? Did somebody
so I
capture
had a
it on a Ring
client there, a
camera?
repeat customer who's now a dear friend of mine, was staying at my property, and he was also a first responder, is a first responder, and he had everything on video, down to the neighbor's house catching on fire, to it jumping to my house, to literally saying in video, I'm so sorry, Sarah, we tried.
Oh my God.
I'll have to send you that video. It was,
Yeah, please do.
I will.
And it sounds like you've done a great job of providing structure for your daughter, and for any of us that have gone through trauma, and particularly kids, that's something that can be so helpful as you navigate recovery, is having predictability and having your environment around you feel safe. And so it sounds like you've been able to make that happen for her.
I'm trying. I do feel like I feel bad, because I am so short fused right now. And so the littlest things, it's like my bandwidth is just, I forgot who
Absolutely.
said it to me. It's like pouring a pitcher of water into a Dixie cup, and I'm the Dixie cup. My capacity is like negative. I can barely deal with clients, because every little thing, it's like, oh my God, stop asking me these questions. But it's like,
And that for sure is can be a symptom of, acute stress disorder or PTSD, that irritability. And, for those of us, for those of us that have had trauma and then, you go through another traumatic event, your nervous system,
It's going to take a minute.
Yep, gasoline on that fire.
Yeah, to get you just centered and regulated again. It's almost just like what I would love for you. When you were talking about kind of COVID era with Malibu and renting out your house, and then you guys kind of escaping a bit to the desert to just regroup and allow yourself to exhale wherever you happen to be. I just hope you give yourself that opportunity just to breathe. Lately, I've been doing a lot of breath work, and we were talking to somebody else earlier about some chest pain that they were experiencing, and how we just harbor all of that internally within our bodies because that stress and anxiety, tension, grief, there's just no way. That's a lot to hold.
I don't think we're built to carry this kind of trauma. It's just so catastrophic. So I think we're all just so frozen.
Yeah, I agree. Well, being in real estate too, I know we have a lot of California clients, and that's exactly what we're figuring out right now is that they're just still in shock. They're just in shock and awe moment. They're not ready to figure out what's next. They're just not in that mode yet to.
Have you found moments, Sarah, like what has been beneficial or helpful to you in terms of, I'm thinking of your Buddha as I'm asking this, but as feeling moments of feeling grounded, moments of peace, is there anything that's really helped you?
Walking yesterday.
Yeah.
I usually, I am a yoga junkie and I usually go 4 to 5 times a week. But since this has happened, I've literally gone twice because I can barely finish a class. But when I do go, I feel better. Honestly, I'm defaulting to sleeping. That's really the only time I feel at peace.
Okay.
I mean, the dreams are ripping through my soul, but at least my body is resting.
Yeah.
Are you having a lot of nightmares?
A lot. Just weird things coming up.
How could it not? You drove your electric car into a flaming road.
Exactly.
How could your not unconscious mind think nothing but terror thoughts?
And that's where my head is just the thought process that I have. I'm like, I just want it to go away.
Right. You're on that loop cycle currently.
I am on that loop cycle.
But you are talking to someone, correct?
Yes, I'm seeing someone every 2 weeks. I wish I could afford to see her every week, but right now I have to be frugal.
Listening to people's stories and definitely in the news that I'm actually not hearing a lot about is in terms of what do we need to do to get you all, the support and from a psychological perspective that you need. Is there a lot of group therapy going on right now that you've heard of?
There's a lot of programs that they have out there, but honestly, I think, everyone's just kind of trying to find their own.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends do have therapists and I have one, and I think it's
essential.
My family does. It's essential. I mean, life is hard. And it's nice to have some guidance and a neutral guidance, not someone that's, it's beneficial to them. It's nice to have neutral guidance.
You and I are so much alike that when I can look into your eyes, which I'm really grateful that I can do that, even if it's on Zoom right now, that, when I do have those moments of dropping in, of being able to stay on my mat, to be able to regulate my nervous system, to be able to sit in my bed and maybe not have a nightmare last night. When I do have those moments when I'm regulated, my God, I feel so good. And I'm so grateful for those moments of ease and flow, because that is how you get to it. That's how you move through the anger. That's how you move through the rage. That's how you move through the grief. There's just no other way around it. So I would always, of course, as your friend and fellow just sister of life, I would always advise you just to keep walking through the feelings and keep showing up for yourself the way that you are.